Week 4 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few defense DST units. I would start this week. The first one, the Kansas City Chiefs. So this week, a great matchup versus the Los Angeles Chargers, where there's a possibility Justin Herbert doesn't play in this game after he left last week's ball game with the ankle injury versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know there was no structural damage with Justin Herbert, obviously not 100%. And to begin with, there's not much going on with this Los Angeles Charger offense. So this Chief unit, I think, is one of the better units in all pro football. In the last couple of weeks, week 2 versus Cincinnati, 25 points allowed, 3 sacks, a fumble, recovery, touchdown. And last week in Atlanta, 17 points allowed, 2 sacks and interceptions. At Kansas City, like I said, 3-0 on the season. Their defense has been the bright spot for them over the offense in the early going this season. And if Justin Herbert's in or out, I believe they still could get pressure on Herbert early and often, or Easton stick a Heineke, whoever the quarterback is, and go out there, make plays, and create a few turnovers in this one. The next DST is the New York Jets. New York Jets, one of the better defenses in pro football. I know turnovers have been an issue for them causing, and this week a pretty decent matchup with the Denver Broncos coming to town. Even though the Broncos shocked and took care of business easily at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where Bo Nix definitely looked good in that one. But the last couple of weeks, the New York Jets defense has definitely put up some points. Week 2 with Tennessee, 17 points allowed, 4 sacks, an INT, a fumble recovery, and a block kick. And week 3 versus the Patriots, only 3 points allowed, 7 sacks, and a fumble recovery. So this week, I think they'll get pressure on Nix early and often. Not many weapons on the outside for this Denver Bronco team. Cortland Sutton, obviously they got Javonte Williams and McLaughlin in the backfield, Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds. And nothing this Jet team I don't think could handle. And this week, once again, I think they go out there and have a top 5 performance. The next DST is the Cleveland Browns. I know the Browns last week, they put in a stinker where many people thought they were going to be good versus the New York Giants, including myself. But they really didn't show up in that ball game. Week 2 with Jacksonville, 13 points allowed, 4 sacks, a safety. In week 3 versus the Giants, like I mentioned, 21 points, 2 sacks, and 2 fumble recoveries. So this week, a good matchup at the Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, they've been a Jekyll and Hyde team in the early going. Week 1, they lost easily to the Chargers. Then week 2, they go into Baltimore and win by a field goal. And then week 3, they get blown out by the worst team in the league going into week 3 by the Carolina Panthers. So this Brown defense, I know the numbers have been down this season, where last season they were a top unit in all the NFL and fantasy football. But this week, I think they get back to basics. We'll see if Myles Garrett is going to play in this game because he was banged up leaving that week 3. Denzel Ward, we know he's a good cornerback, and Gardner Minshew is good possibly for a few turnovers. So right now, I think this Cleveland Brown team could bounce back this week. Next DST is the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys defense has been one of the worst units in the league this season. Week 1, they got off to a good start versus the Cleveland Browns, and now the last 2 weeks, they gave up over 40 points to the Saints in week 2, 44 points allowed, a sack, an interception, a block kick. And then week 3 versus Baltimore, 28 points, no sacks, nothing on the stat sheet. But this week, a good matchup at the New York Giants, where the Cowboys have had success versus Giant team over the last few seasons. I know it's a Thursday night football ball game, where usually those games are about scoring the football for the most part. But Dallas, they just got to get back to basics on the defense and get off the field on third down. And Daniel Jones, to this date, is possibly him and Deshaun Watson the worst quarterback they've versed this season. So Dallas, I'm not saying they're going to be a top 5 option, but I think this week they're a startable option. Defense now cracked the top 12 this week in the rankings, and the 5th and final defense DST I would start this week. So Pittsburgh Steelers, this Steelers team is built on running the football, not turning the football over, and playing good defense. And so far this year, one of the best units in fantasy football is this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. The last couple weeks, week 2 with Denver, 6 points allowed, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. In week 3 versus the Chargers, 10 points allowed, 5 sacks. So this week, good matchup at the Indianapolis Colts. The last 2 weeks, Anthony Richardson has had nothing going. Week 2 in Green Bay, he struggled. And he struggled even more in week 3 with the Bears coming to town in Indianapolis, throwing 2 bad interceptions as well. So Pittsburgh, led by TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Hayward on the defensive line. I think they could get pressure on Anthony Richardson. They could create some havoc and turnovers. And they're always a good defense for the most part, is Pittsburgh, and a startable option pretty much weekly going back the last couple seasons. That's a few defense DST units I would look to start for week 4 of the fantasy football season.